Hello friends, welcome to our channel Chemistry with SK.
So this is your last unit, electrochemistry, and most of this part you have already studied in 12th class. There was a separate topic named as electrochemistry. First of all, this is known to you that this is the content, that is your syllabus. As the first point is the Ohm's law. As far as Ohm's law is concerned, you also have studied this Ohm's law from last year itself, or we can say from 12th class itself, where you can simply remember Ohm's law in the form of equation. I is proportional to V or I is proportional to E, where E and V is same, that is electrode potential. Either you call it as V potential or E as electrode potential. It means it will be the same term. So I stands for current. It means if you remember this particular equation, that I is proportional to V or I is proportional to E, as per your notations, whatever it is, the entire statement can be remembered by using this equation, or from that can be explained from this equation. In the definition, what is mentioned? The current flowing through a given solution is directly proportional to the voltage or potential difference between the two ends of conductor through which the current is flowing. It means simply what I mentioned, we have to write this particular equation, or we have to remember this particular equation, and accordingly we have to mention that the current, I is current flowing through the given solution, because we are talking about the electrolytic solutions, and that's why we should consider the solution here. Is directly proportional to the voltage or potential difference. So simply the I is proportional to V or I is proportional to E. If you have to remember the various forms of this equation, actually this is a triangle. We can remember these various terms. For example, if you remember I is proportional to V or I is proportional to E, suppose I is proportional to V. So what we are writing, electrode potential is nothing but a resistance into the current. Okay. So here it is equal to R, E is equal to R into I, where I is the current strength and R is the resistance, and VE, where E is nothing but the potential difference, or V is also the potential difference. It means we can say that here V is equal to IR. The three equations are given, the three triangles are given, where same terms are there, VIR, VIR, VIR. But whenever you have to find out the value of V, once the formula is there, V is equal to IR, at that time what you should do, once the formula is V equal to IR, so it is written. It means we can say that V is equal to I into R. Here is a multiplication sign. When we have to find out the I, so I is equal to V upon R. You can see it. V equal to, or we can say I equal to V upon R. Where we have to find out the R value of resistance, then equal to V upon I. It means from this triangle, it is possible to remember, and only three values are there, which are to be remembered in the triangle, and that are V, I, and R. Their locations are also same. Where the unit of resistance, you know that it is volts per ampere, and what you call it as SI unit as the ohm. Okay. Then the term resistance, as we have used this term resistance, resistance means what? It is a tendency of a material to stop the flow of current. Okay. It means it is a tendency to what? To do what? To stop the flow of current. Whenever the current is being stopped, that tendency is called as the resistance, and it is measured in the unit of ohms. So as per the Ohm's law, we can say that a resistance offered by the substance is directly proportional to its length and inversely proportional to its cross-sectional area A. And it means we can say it's directly proportional to length, but inversely proportional to its cross-sectional area. It means we can say that R is proportional to L upon A, or R is proportional to L, and it is inversely proportional to A, where L is the length of, we can say, that conductor, and the A is the cross-sectional area. Okay, so here, if you have to use this equation, so if you have to remove this proportionality symbol, what we have to do? We have to use another proportionality constant here, so that this proportionality constant will, proportionality symbol will be removed, and some proportionality constant will be there, so it will be equal to L upon A. So what that proportionality symbol will be there? So let us use some proportionality symbol. So that can be, suppose, a rho. Okay, that can be rho. So rho is the proportionality constant, and it is known as specific resistance or resistivity. What is meant by this rho or this resistivity? Okay, rho is the proportionality constant, which is called as specific resistance or resistivity, and the meaning of this is nothing but the definition is as the resistance of a solution of 1 centimeter length, 1 centimeter area, and 1 centimeter cross section. It means 1 centimeter length and 1 centimeter cross sectional area. In short, we can say the resistance of 1 cubic centimeter of solution. It means suppose there is a 1 cubic centimeter solution whose length 1 centimeter, and its entire volume is 1 cubic centimeter volume. 1 centimeter length, 1 centimeter height, and 1 centimeter as breadth. So within this 1 cubic centimeter, whatever the resistance will be observed, that resistance is called as specific resistance. Okay, remember that specific resistance is nothing but the resistance of 1 cubic centimeter volume of a solution. Now we have to lead to another term, that is a specific resistance. Specific conductance are also called as conductivity, symbolized by the term K. So it is nothing but the reciprocal of specific resistance. We have recently seen specific resistance is rho. So the reciprocal of this rho or specific resistance is called as specific conductance. Okay, and it is nothing but the conductance of 1 cubic centimeter volume of solution, and which is denoted by the term K, that is kappa. Okay, it means the specific conductance is nothing but the conductance of 1 cubic centimeter volume of solution. It means whatever the ions are present in 1 cubic centimeter volume of solution, so that particular ions are moving and that are responsible for some conductance, and that conductance of 1 cubic centimeter volume is called as this specific conductance or conductivity. This can be your main first term out of the three definitions: molar conductance, equivalent conductance, and the specific conductance. So remember that specific conductance is conductance of a solution which is produced by the ions which are present in 1 cubic centimeter volume. So as the definition, as we are seeing the definitions, so we will see some equations as this definition is mentioned. So we can say that K is equal to 1 upon rho, because it is mentioned that reciprocal of this rho is called as conductance, and that is the specific conductance. So K, so we can say 1 upon rho equal to K. But as we have seen in the previous slide that R equal to rho into L upon A. So we can put the values into this equation. Okay. And then it will become K equal to, we will rearrange this and we will put the value. So it will become K equal to 1 upon rho into 1 upon RA into L. So it can be rearranged and it becomes L upon A into 1 upon R. So L upon A and 1 upon R. So instead of 1 upon R, it is 1 upon resistance. It means it is a reciprocal of resistance. We know that the reciprocal of resistance is nothing but the conductance. So it can also be called as the K is the specific conductance, L upon A is this term, and the conductance of solution. Moreover, we have to proceed to the next slide, in which we have to see this L upon A is nothing but the cell constant. Okay, the value of cell constant. You remember the definitions mainly. Now, the equivalent conductance. It is the conductance of solution which are containing 1 gram equivalent of its ions or electrolyte. It means when 1 gram of electrolyte, 1 gram equivalent of an electrolyte, when it is dissolved in some volume of solution, or we can say some solvent, then into that solution, whatever the conductance will be responsible, or whatever the conductance will be there, that will be simply called as equivalent conductance or equivalent conductivity. 1 gram equivalent means what? How much this is? 1 gram equivalent means equal to equivalent weight. Okay, the amount of substance equal to its equivalent weight, that is called as 1 gram equivalent. 1 mole means what? 1 mole of substance. It means equal to the molecular weight of substance. Similarly, here it is 1 gram equivalent. It means it is equal to, the mass is equal to 1 equivalent weight. Okay. So equivalent weight of material is to be added, that electrolyte is to be dissolved, and whatever the conductance will be there due to the ions present there, that will be called as equivalent conductivity or equivalent conductance. Okay. It means, as you know that in case of metals, there is a conduction due to free electrons, while in case of solution, the conductance is due to ions. Okay. So these ions are responsible for this particular conductance. As 1 cc or ml of solution has conductance equal to K as specific conductance, therefore we can say that the K into volume. So we can say that specific conductance multiplied by total volume in ml. Okay, total volume in ml, that is equal to this lambda. This is lambda. I hope you know it. Small lambda and capital lambda. So this is also a lambda, and this equivalent conductance is denoted by this lambda, and that is equal to K into V. But here we should remember that this concentration, if C is the concentration of solution in gram per equivalent per liter, that is normality, then volume of solution containing 1 gram equivalent will be considered as 1000 upon C. So we can say that this is equal to this is the equation lambda equal to K into V. So same equation we have written here is equal to K into. So V is nothing but 1000 upon C. Why it is C? Because it is the normal concentration. So we can say the unit of ohm inverse centimeter square per equivalent. So in this way, you also need to remember the units also. Okay, the units for the respective terms that are also required or that are also necessary. Then the molar conductivity or molar conductance. As the name implies, the conductance of solution containing 1 gram equivalent of electrolyte, that is called as molar conductance. It means when 1 mole of substance, is dissolved in some solution, at the time whatever the ions will be formed, that ions will move, okay, randomly inside the solution, inside that particular liquid, and that ions will have some mobility. So that mobility is nothing but the conductance, and that conductance is measured by using the conductivity cell and some instruments. So this molar conductance is denoted by the symbol nu, which is equal to K into V again. Here we will say in last case also it was K into V, but it was lambda. Now it is nu. So how it is? Because there the concentration was in the grams equivalent. Here the concentration is in the gram mole. Okay. So here when we are considering about the volume, instead of C, we have written here M. That was normal concentration. Here it is molar concentration, and accordingly it is about the molar conductivity. For the measurement of conductance, we have to see this instrumental part, that is Wheatstone meter bridge. Actually, nowadays we are not using this Wheatstone meter bridge, okay, because there are many instruments, advanced instruments, and this is the older method, okay. But still, as it is for syllabus, and therefore we have to proceed. So we have to see the determination of conductivity of solution, how the conductance is measured actually, right? So for the determination of conductivity of solution, there is some part, and this is known as a Wheatstone network bridge, or we can say Wheatstone meter bridge. Actually, this type of practical you might have performed in 12th class, 11th or 12th class for physics. Okay, so this is a huge 1 meter scale, and one wire, uniform thickness wire, is put over there. Here it is for determination of conductivity of solution. Actually, this is the theoretical part and this is the lengthy part. And as the lengthy questions are not expected here because of multiple choice question examination, but still we have to see the main part which is expected for the examination. So as we know that the conductivity is the reciprocal of resistance, and the resistance is more frequently determined by means of some form of Wheatstone bridge circuit. But when the direct current is passed through the solution, various difficulties are observed. When direct current is passed into solution, the various difficulties are observed, and that difficulties are the concentration of the charges, or we can say the polarization set is, which is due to the substance liberated at electrodes. It means we know that there are some substances are liberated at various electrodes, and that's why with that result, a reverse EMF or back EMF is also set up, and the resistance of the electrolyte solution can alter. So in order to remove these difficulties, Kohlrausch has put some concept, or he has given some solutions for solving these difficulties. As according to him, by using the alternating current, the polarizing effect of deposition of substances due to the current in one direction is neutralized by its effect by the current in other direction. So this is one of the solution given by using this Wheatstone network bridge. So that particular concept is applied. It means by increasing the surface of electrodes. Okay, if you increase the surface of electrodes, the polarization is decreased further. And if the surface of electrode is increased, this is done by coating electrodes in the cell with finely divided platinum. So it is also possible by using, or we can say this particular errors can also be removed by using headphones. Yes, you may ask that why headphones. So here you know that here we are using jockey and such a Wheatstone network bridge is there. So as regarding it, headphone is there. Since with the passage of the alternating current, the ordinary galvanometer in Wheatstone meter bridge cannot be employed to determine the null point. Okay, it is not possible to find out null point in that case. So it can be replaced by the headphone, not our headphone or our microphone. So then it can be solved. That problem can be solved. Or we can say by using some oscillator to obtain still results, or we can say still we are getting the better results when the induction coil is replaced by an oscillator having the frequency of some we can say 2000 to 4000 cycles per second. It means as we are using some coil, so better results can be possible if the induction coil we are replacing with the oscillator. Okay, it is regarding the basic part. Whenever the connections are there, here there is a resistance box, and here the electrolytic solution is taken. Conductivity cell is deep into that electrolytic solution, and here it is a jockey. There is a uniform thickness wire A, B, and with the help of this galvanometer, or we can say with the help of this jockey, simply we obtain the null point. Okay, so that point is considered to be H, and based on the distances of AB, H, AH, etc. There are some terms to be remembered, and then it is possible to determine the conductivity of solution. Mainly, we require a conductivity cell, and what the conductivity cell consists of. So this is the conductivity cell. I will zoom it. Here the connections are there. So remember that what happens here. These are this is the conductivity cell. This is the glass assembly. And here, these are the two sealed glass tubes from which the platinum wire is coming here, and two platinum plates are also kept. Okay, so these are the two platinum plates. You can remember, you can see these are the two platinum plates. This is one plate and this is another plate. And these are kept at distance of 1 centimeter. The distance between these two plates, it is around 1 centimeter. Okay. And based on that, there can be cell constant value. Okay, we have to proceed to the cell constant also. But here, the distance between these two will be 1 centimeter generally. And these are the platinum plates. And when we are using this, that can sense the conductivity of the solution, whatever the electrolyte solution we are keeping, its conductance will be observed, and that will be given to the, readings will be sent to the instrument. Actually, here, as I have mentioned, we are using this as an older technique as per your syllabus. That is not your mistake. But nowadays, almost nobody is using this. Practically, the digital instruments are coming in the market, or that are available easily. Just a small box, and that is not much costly also. So that is available easily for the determination of conductance. Okay. But as a part of syllabus, it was there, and so we have taken it. Let us proceed to the next term as cell constant. Actually, this is very good topic for the questions to be asked. A lot of questions are possible. We can say just few of questions are possible, mainly on the definition. So definition is nothing but this is the definition: L upon A. Yes, it means cell constant equal to L upon A. Actually, we can represent, or we can write the definition in the form of equation, or we can say by reading the equation, the cell constant is defined as. So cell constant is defined as the ratio of L. L stands for the length. What length? Length between the two electrodes. as we know that there are two electrodes, the length between the two electrodes divided by its area of cross section, it is called as cell constant. So L upon A. We have seen this equation in previous slides, that specific conductance equal to L upon A into conductance of solution. So we know that this L upon A can be called as cell constant. So if you are putting the value of, or we can say if you are calling it as cell constant, then this is equal to specific conductance upon this conductance of solution, or this is also called as observed conductance of solution or observed conductance. Okay, OBS, observed conductance. In this way, we can say there can be two definitions for the cell constant. This can be one, and this can be written as second definition. You have to write the unit of cell constant also. So you know that how to write the unit. It is L upon A. The formula is L upon A. So we know that L, if the formula is L upon A, you know that unit of length is centimeter, and A, area is centimeter square. So what remains? Centimeter gets cancelled and it remains as a centimeter inverse, right? So this is the unit for cell constant, centimeter inverse. In this way, we can remember and we can find out the units and cell constant values also. Now, the next part is very, very important, and it is very necessary to clear this particular concept, because a lot of questions are possible, and that topic is types of conductometric titrations. I will try to cover it, the main highlights of this conductometric titration. But as far as this conductometric titration is concerned, I will suggest you to go through video again, because I have prepared a video that is almost 25 plus minutes, 25 to 28 minutes video is there, in which in detail the types of titrations are explained. And if we replace the solutions, it means if solution taken in the beaker or burette, if it is exchanged, what will happen, how the curve will change, how the calculations are to be written, entire part is explained there. Okay. So as the types of conductometric titrations are concerned, there are mainly 4 types of conductometric titrations, as strong acid, strong base, strong acid, weak base, weak acid, strong base, and weak acid, weak base. So these 4 are the possible titrations. We are using, or we are performing these titrations by using instrumental method of analysis we are using, or we are using conductometry instrument. We are not performing the titration by taking simple burette, conical flash, and endpoint, indicator and endpoint. So remember that as it is instrumental method, so for instrumental method, we are not using any indicator, because no color change is required to be observed. The instrument will note the reading, and we have to just note the readings, and we have to plot the graph with the help of that readings. So let us see what is expected in this description. Anybody from you or anybody who will understand this can explain this entire part very easily. Let us consider the first equation, or we can say the first type, as strong acid and strong base type of example, or we can say strong acid and strong base type of titration by using this instrument. Remember that first of all, what is necessary to mention, we have to write about the reaction or example. The strong acid, strong base titration is to be explained. So you have to write what is the strong acid known to you. Yes, HCl is the strong acid which is known to you. What is the strong base? Suppose it is NaOH. So we have to mention, if it could be a descriptive exam, then we could write it as consider HCl as strong acid and NaOH as strong base, and the titration between these two is continued. Okay, in this way you could have explained. So the reaction we have to write. HCl and NaOH, anybody can write the reaction. From school levels, we are seeing that reaction. This Cl and Na will form NaCl, and this H and OH will convert into water. So the reaction is to be written. Now we have to perform the titration, and here after performing the titration, this will be the graph of conductance are on y-axis and volume of burette solution along x-axis. V is the volume of burette solution along x-axis, and this is plotted. It means when we are performing titration, at that time we are taking the solution, electrolyte solution or the test solution we are taking in beaker instead of conical flask. Why in the beaker? Because we need to dip some electrodes, right? And as electrodes have to be dipped, therefore conical flask may have the small neck, so that the electrode may not be fixed into that properly. So we need to use beaker instead of the conical flask. And we have to use burette. No indicator is required. So when the electrode is deep into the solution, at that time the connection is to be given to the instrument, and that instrument will record the reading, or instrument will display the reading. We have to note that reading. So at various volumes of burette solution, we are adding 0 ml. It means initially no addition of burette solution. Then we are adding 0.5 ml, 0.5 ml, and in this way 0.5 ml of addition when we are doing from the burette solution, at that time whatever the changes in the conductance of solution are observed. So based on that, this graph is plotted, and here it is observed that when HCl is taken, now here we can take any solution, either we can take acid in the burette or base in the burette, but it is mentioned here that base is mentioned in base is taken in the burette. Actually, you can take any solution, but we should mention what solution is taken in the burette and what is in the beaker. So as base is in the burette, so we can say that HCl is in the beaker now. So we know that HCl contains H+ ions that are very, very fast moving ions. So the conductance, initial conductance is very high. When NaOH is added into HCl, the conductance decreases sharply because of decrease in H+ ion concentration. Because this H+ ion concentrations will decrease, because this will be neutralization. H+ and Cl- will combine with this Na+ and OH-. So there will be decrease in H+ ion concentration, and that's why due to decrease in number of ions, there is a sharp decrease in conductance. Up to equivalence point. After equivalence point, it means when no H+ ions are there, when all H+ ions are finished, and when we are adding NaOH solution, at that time NaOH will dissociate as Na+ and OH- ion. So this Na+ ions are also having much mobility. Okay, so when these Na+ ions are added, again the conductance increases much sharply. So we are getting this type of curve. V-shaped graph is observed. Okay, V-shaped graph is observed. If we replace the solutions, it means if we take the acid in the burette, what will happen in this particular case? This is the example of strong acid and strong base type of titration. So what will happen? It means if base is taken in the conical, if base is taken in the beaker, then again we know that Na+ ions are having more mobility, Na+. So the conductance will be very high. That will decrease much sharply. Okay, this is also sharp. And after the equivalence point, due to H+ ion, the conductance will again increase. Actually, though I have given this, you can simply draw this type of curve in both the cases. But I have to just compare the V curve, V shape of this first case and this second case. So this is slightly lower as compared to this. This is very, we can say slope, much slope is there, sharp decrease, and here not same sharp decrease. Okay. So here it is. Now, in all the cases, we can write about the calculation part, and you can remember this one sentence. 1 ml, 1 normal burette solution corresponds to dash milligrams of titrant. Titrant means whatever the taken in the beaker. This is the burette solution and this is beaker solution. So X milligrams of titrant. X is the equivalent weight of that particular molecule. In this case, suppose we are taking NaOH in the burette. I will just tell you one example. Suppose you are taking NaOH in the first case. We are talking about this first case. So volume 1 ml, 1 normal burette solution, NaOH solution. And what is the titrant? Titrant is HCl. So I will say X milligrams of HCl. Titrant is HCl. So what is the X value, equivalent weight of HCl? Actually, in case of HCl, equivalent weight and molecular weight is same, and that is 36.5 milligrams. Okay, not gram. It is in the milligram. It is expected. So in this way, any calculation can be written, and we can calculate this for the conductometric type of titrations. So this is the first type of titration. Second type of titration is this weak acid and strong base. It means one is weak acid. Suppose acetic acid is weak acid, strong base, and a reaction formation of sodium acetate and water. Mainly we have to focus on the curve and the graph. It means initially, if acid is taken in the burette, it means NaOH is taken in the that beaker, that is in the conical glass or beaker. So that is having higher conductance initially. That conductance value decreases sharply. But after equivalence point, due to addition of this weak entity, there is no much considerable change in the conductance. Why? Because this is weak entity, weak electrolyte, and it takes very slower dissociation. It takes very much time for the dissociation. So there is no considerable change in the conductance. But if we replace the two solutions, if acid is taken in the conical flask and base is taken in the burette, if solutions are exchanged, then what will happen? Then acetic acid will be taken in the beaker and there will be slight increase, very slight increase in the conductance value. Why it is? Because of increase in dissociation. Yes, it is weak electrolyte, but as soon as we are adding NaOH in the solution, there is a slight increase in the conductance value. Okay. So there is slight increase in the conductance value up to equivalence point, and after equivalence point, due to NaOH addition, due to Na plus ions, the conductance increases sharply. That's it. So the calculation part is known to you. The next is titration between strong acid and weak base. So we have to just label the examples. Okay. So the strong acid, weak base, ammonium chloride formation. You can see this here, volume of burette solution, acid is taken in the, it means strong acid is taken in the burette. Okay, this is the burette solution. The weak species, if it is taken in the beaker, then there is increase in conductance very slightly, just in the as in the previous case. And when the strong entity is there, their conductance is very high. Similarly, if strong entity is taken in the beaker, the initial conductance will be very high and that will decrease slowly, or we can say sharply. That will decrease sharply if it is strong electrolyte. But if it is weak electrolyte after equivalence point, then the conductance is almost constant. No considerable change in the conductance. Okay. The last example, weak acid and weak base type of titration. So while both are weak, so you know that if weak entity is in the beaker, then initial conductance is increasing very slightly. After equivalence point, it is having negligible change, no considerable change, and that's it. So here, though acid is taken in the burette or though base is taken in the burette, the graph will have the same pattern. Now, I will compare these we can say curves for conductometric titrations. You can see. This is strong acid, strong base, weak acid, strong base, and the names are given. So you can just remember that if there is a strong electrolyte before equivalence point, then there is a decrease in conductance. If there is a strong electrolyte before equivalence point, then there is a decrease in conductance. If there is a weak electrolyte before equivalence point, then there is an increase in conductance. And if there is a strong electrolyte after equivalence point, then there is a sharp increase. If there is a weak electrolyte after equivalence point, it means if weak electrolyte is in the burette, then after equivalence point, there will be no considerable change. So this is just summary. You watch that video on the conductometric titrations for more details, and you will have never will have any doubt regarding these conductometric titrations. Okay. Now the next part as the Nernst equation. So we know that Nernst equation is nothing but E is equal to E0 upon minus RT upon NF into ln K. K stands for we can say equilibrium. K stands for equilibrium constant for the reaction. K is equal to concentration of product upon concentration of reactant, or we can call it as a reduced form upon oxidized form, reduced species upon oxidized species, or we can say reduced form upon oxidized form. So when this ln is there, we know that ln is to be converted into log to the base 10. ln stands for log to the base E, and when it is to be converted into log to the base 10, then we have to multiply it with this figure 2.303. So we can say that E is equal to E cell, or simply it is E equal to E0 minus 2.303 into RT upon NF into log of this reduced form upon oxidized form. But at 298 Kelvin, and if you if you put the values at 298 Kelvin, it means the value of R and T can be kept. T is the temperature which is kept here as 298 Kelvin. R value, we can put the R as a gas constant. Okay, that is a constant value. The 96,500, the value of F. And if you put all these values and if you calculate, except this N, so the equation becomes E equal to E0 minus 0.0591 upon N into log of product concentration upon reactant concentration. So simply this can be the Nernst equation. Here what is important, you must remember the terms. E is equal to EMF of cell, E0 is equal to standard EMF of cell, N stands for number of electrons involved in the reaction, and that's it. If K is there, then it is a reaction constant quotient, we can say, or equilibrium constant. R is gas constant, T is the temperature in Kelvin. So you must remember the significance of this term, and that's it about the Nernst equation. This Nernst equation is having many applications. The main application for your syllabus may be the calculation part for this. Useful for calculation of half cell potential at any temperature and concentration. So the calculation part may be there in your syllabus. It means there are various applications of Nernst equation. We can calculate the half cell electrode potential, or we can say electrode potential of a electrode. If potential of electrode is known, then the concentration of reactant can be calculated. If one thing is known, other thing can be calculated. Concentration of solution in the galvanic cell can also be determined, and the pH of solution can also be calculated by measuring the EMF. There is one relation, and by using some relation between pH and EMF, this EMF and pH things can also be determined. Now the next part is glass electrode. I will explain this in short. Remember that this is the glass electrode at the this is very delicate one. Whatever this particular glass bulb you can see, this is very thin and very delicate, and it contains 1 molar, sorry, 0.1 molar HCl solution. This is the glass tube. Inside that there is a platinum or silver wire which is coated with silver chloride, and that's it. So this is the glass electrode. Now what happens? This is having a capacity of exchanging H plus ions with Na plus ions from the glass. As here the glass membrane contains Na plus ions, so Na plus ions and H plus ions can be exchanged. And one more thing is that this is useful for determination of H plus ion concentration. This electrode is useful for determination of H plus ion concentration or pH of solution also. If you have to find out the accurate pH values for the solution by using instrument, this electrode can be useful. What happens exactly? Here inside this, there is a different concentration of H plus ions. Outside this suppose we are taking some electrolyte and we are dipping this electrode in some electrolytic solution. At that time, the internal solution will have different concentration. This external solution will have different concentration. And due to that, what happens? The mechanism or the main process behind this is at the interface between this glass bulb, there is formation of a potential difference. Some potential difference is set at the interface because of different in concentration of H plus ions. Internal concentration is different, outer concentration is different, and that's why at the interface between that there is a formation of some potential difference. Some potential difference is set, and that's why we can sense the H plus ion concentration by using this electrode. Okay. Then you can see the principle, the construction. Yes, you can remember the half cell notation, half cell representation. That platinum wire is used, so it is platinum electrode. We are talking only about the half cell part. Then which solution is there? Inside that there is 0.1 molar HCl, so we have written 0.1 molar HCl, and that's it. So this is half cell representation. If we are putting the double bar, then we have to write another solution which is there. So another solution can be H plus test solution, and there can be something else. Okay. So the equation for calculating the electrode potential of glass, this as EG stands for glass electrode potential, and this is standard glass electrode potential, and this as 0.0591 into pH. So this, by this equation we can find out the relation between pH and EMF of solution. Then the working, this can be the formula for calculation of EMF of this cell. E cell equal to E calomel minus EG, E glass. Actually, whenever you are using any single electrode, it is not possible to find out its actual electrode potential, because there is a requirement of minimum 2 electrodes for cell formation, and without complete cell formation, no, it is not possible to find out determine the electrode potential. So one will be the reference electrode, other will be the indicator electrode, and this calomel electrode acts as a reference electrode, and that's why this is the formula that at least you can remember this. E calomel equal to E cell, that is EMF of cell, equal to E calomel minus E glass. It means calomel electrode potential minus glass electrode potential. So calomel electrode potential can be put. This can be the value at saturated concentration of KCl solution, which is present in the calomel electrode. If you know it, remember it. And then this is the equation for calculating the pH, or we can say EMF of cell. There are certain advantages of glass electrode, as it is portable and equipment gives quick results, accurate results, equilibrium is easily attained, and it can be tested, useful for testing even biological fluids also, like our gastric juice or bile, so that can also be tested. It means any turbid solutions or biological fluids can also be tested. It is useful for knowing the pH of solution, and it is not used in strongly acidic and alkaline conditions. That is, actually it cannot be an advantage. It can be a limitation. So that's it. Now the next part we have to see it as fuel cell. Okay. So what is fuel cell? Fuel cells are nothing but these are the galvanic cells. Fuel cells. Okay. We are talking about fuel cells now. We are at the end. Fuel cells are the galvanic cells which are converting chemical energy into electrical energy directly. It means chemical energy into electrical energy. If there is a direct conversion, then that is said to be a fuel cell. If you see ordinary combustion process, when we are producing the electricity, then the reaction is fuel and oxygen. Fuel and oxygen, and there is formation of some combustion products, and heat is released. So this heat is liberated. But if you see the fuel cell process, the fuel react with oxygen. Okay, you can see the reactants are same, fuel and oxygen. But here there is a combustion reaction, and here the fuel and oxygen reacts together, and there is oxidation reaction. Here there is a combustion, means burning, and here is only oxidation reaction, and there is formation of electricity. So why these fuel cells are important, or we can say they are more useful, that we have to see. Why fuel cells are more efficient? The reason is, if you see the conventional process of converting the heat into electrical energy, or we can say chemical energy into electrical energy. So that is, the chemical energy is converted into heat, the heat is liberated, then that is converted into mechanical energy, and then into electrical energy. So there are so many steps, and that's why this is not an efficient process. This is the traditional process, and that is not efficient. Therefore, if you see the fuel cell process, it is observed that the chemical energy is directly converted into electrical energy without these steps, and that's why this process is more efficient. If you see the efficiency, it is observed that the efficiency of this fuel cell may reach up to 70%. Actually, though 70% is not a good figure, but if we compare the diesel engine and petrol engines, then the efficiency is only 15 to 20% for petrol engines and 30 to 35% for diesel engines. It means as compared to this, it is very, very good. What is the fuel cell, or how fuel cell looks? If you see the fuel cell, the typical fuel cell we can represent here. If you have to show the fuel cell representation as a half cell representation. Accordingly, if there is a fuel cell representation, we can write it as the fuel. We are passing the fuel from this side, so fuel, oxidant or air or oxygen from this side, so it is oxidant. Then here is some electrode, and here is one electrode, so electrode, and in between that there is electrolytic solution. So as per the diagram, this cell notation can be remembered. That's it. So let us see the example of hydrogen oxygen fuel cell as per your syllabus. So this is the basic thing, or I will explain the diagram first. The fuel is passed from this side. Suppose here the fuel inlet is there, fuel is passed. Oxygen or air is passed from this right hand side. What will happen? The fuel hydrogen will pass here. There will be we can say oxidation of this hydrogen. It means hydrogen on oxidation, because it is anode. This electrode is anode, and we know that oxidation reaction occurs on anode, and this is cathode. Okay, this is cathode one, and this is the we can say anode. This in this way. So on anode there is oxidation reactions. It means hydrogen is converted into H plus ions. Oxidation of hydrogen, it means there will be H plus ion formation, and the H plus ions are formed. Electrons are liberated. These liberated electrons are circulated from external circuit. Okay, that electrons are coming on through the external circuit, and that are coming on the cathode. Simultaneously, what is coming at the cathode? This oxygen is coming. As oxygen is coming here, oxygen gains that high H plus ions. Okay, H plus ions are coming here, that are passing to the electrolyte, that are reaching to the cathode. Electrons are also coming there. It means the three species are coming here. One has these H plus ions, these are electrons, and this oxygen. So these three species will combine together to form water. H plus ions, oxygen, and these electrons, there will be formation of water, and water is taken out from the bottom. And in this way, this is the working of this particular cell. As you know, and on cathode there is a reduction, and on anode there is a oxidation. Okay, so this can be the reactions. So these are the reactions. Recently I have seen hydrogen converts into H plus ions by loss of electrons. These H plus ions are coming at the cathode. Oxygen, H plus ions, and electrons are forming water molecule. Okay, and simply if you see the total reaction or net reaction, it can be written in this way for water molecule formation. That is having advantages as high efficiency, low noise pollution, saves the traditional or fossil fuels, less polluting, no pollution at all, and hydrogen oxygen fuel cells forms water that can be drinking quality water, or we can say potable quality water. Yes, the minerals will not be present there, that we should take care. In this way, these are some advantages of this fuel cell. The next part is Ostwald's theory of acid-base indicators. So, what is this theory actually? As we know, the indicator is the material which is used to to be used in the titration. So, why that is necessary to use? If we do not use indicator, what will happen? Whether the reaction will be prevented? No, the reaction will take place, but we will not identify whether the reaction is over or not. It means with the help of indicator, we can observe the endpoint. We can observe the change in color, and that's why we can say that yes, reaction is over and that is finished, or endpoint is reached. But without indicator also, all the reactions are taking place, but we cannot observe it, or we cannot identify the endpoint or the reaction completion point. So in short, there are various indicators which are having specific pH range. Each indicator is having some specific pH range, and that can be used, or that can show the change in color in that particular pH range only. For example, if it is methyl orange, the pH range is 3.2 to 4.5. If it is phenol red, then this can be the pH range. Phenolphthalein 8.3 to 10.5. This can be the pH range. And the endpoint also it is given. It means when the pH will reach to this particular pH value, when the pH of solution will reach this value, this will be the endpoint. It means solution will become pink. Okay, solution will become pink. If the pH is between this, then the pH will be this pink, or we can say this will be the endpoints for the titration. Endpoint this to this, the endpoint is this. While seeing the Ostwald's theory, the color change is due to ionization of these acid-base indicators. There is ionization, dissociation occurs, and then that unionized form is having a different color than the ionized form, and that's why we can observe the change in color. The ionization of an indicator is largely affected in acids and bases, as it is either weak acid or weak base. In case of indicator, it is observed that the indicator, in case of, suppose you can say, if there is a indicator and which is weak acid, then what will happen? Its ionization will be slow. It will be very, very slow. because of slow dissociation. And we can say that common ion effect, or we can say common H plus ions which are present there, that may be responsible. While it is fairly ionized in case of alkalis, it means we can say that if indicator is weak base, its ionization is large in acids and low in alkalis due to common ion effect. Okay, so we'll see some examples. For example, just one example we'll see. For example, we are talking about the phenolphthalein indicator. So instead of writing formula, we'll note this as HPH. So the phenolphthalein contains H plus ions which can be released. So when H contains H plus ions, it is colorless. But when it releases H plus ion, it means when it loses H plus ion, it becomes pink. So by applying law of mass action, K, that equilibrium constant for the reaction equal to concentration of product upon concentration of reactant. Sorry, here minus charge is missing. So here minus should be there, H plus and pH minus. So that the product concentration upon reactant concentration. Now, as you know, conjugate acid base pair, suppose this is the reaction that along with water, this H indicator, H ion means this H plus indicator containing H plus ion. So when H plus is released, that H plus is given to water, it becomes H3O plus, and there here indicator is released. What happens exactly? This loses H plus ion, so it is called as acid, and it gains H plus ion, so it is called as, actually it is gaining H plus ion, so it is called as base. So as you know, where the conjugate acid base pair to be identified from the difference in H plus ions. Okay, so we can say if this is the acid form, then it is a base form. It means conjugate acid base pair. How the conjugate acid base pairs will be there? So that will be having the difference of one H plus ion. This H ion and ion, these are the conjugate acid base pairs. While another conjugate acid base pair, you might remember that the conjugate acid base pair is the part, we can say the terms which are having the difference of one H plus ion. Here H2 and here H3O plus. So this is one conjugate acid base pair, and this is another conjugate acid base pair. Okay, so here if you want to write it in terms of K, that is dissociation constant of indicator, then it equal to concentration of product upon concentration of reactant. So what is the concentration of product? Here ion minus. Okay, so we can say here it is ion minus, here minus is not visible, divided by multiplied by this H3O concentration. It means you can write it by your own, that H3O concentration, it means the concentration of product divided by concentration of reactant. Reactant is this. Why this water is not taken in the divided in this term? Because we know that concentration of water should be taken H3O plus concentration of ion minus divided by concentration of H ion multiplied by H2O, concentration of H2O. So why this H2O is not written here in this particular equation? The reason is this is the concentration of H2O, and we know that concentration of water is never changing. Okay, we know that there is a never change in concentration of water, so this term cannot be, or we can say can be neglected. So accordingly, this is rearranged, and H3O plus concentration can be obtained from this this value. So we know that the pH terms is there, or we can say pH can be calculated by using the formula pH equal to minus log of H plus ion concentration, and here H plus ion concentration or H3O plus ion concentration means it is same, and accordingly at equivalence point we can say that by using the Henderson equation, or we can say for indicators by using Henderson equation, we can say that at equivalence point indicator concentration is equal to H ion concentration, so we can say pH equal to pK ion. So it is as per, we can say, the theory of acid base indicators. Mainly you have to remember the fundamental terms, fundamental concepts, and this conjugate acid base pair concept. Okay, so I think this is over. Thank you.